Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm very excited actually because I've lectured for hundreds of times, but this is the first time that actually the speaker that I'm lecturing next to is actually a humanoid robot. So we're living in a historic moment where technology and humanity are actually complementing each other. Now, this is my background. As you can see, many years before being a lawyer, I was a musician. This is a song of my old band. And I wrote my PhD about music and traditional copyright. And it was in 2016, nearly 10 years ago, that the first song created by AI came out. I was amazed. I was shocked. And I could feel, no one really spoke about it nearly then. I could feel and I asked myself, what are the implications of this massive change? What is the future of creativity? What is the future of humanity? What does it mean to be an artist in the age of generative AI? So this is what I'd like to speak to you about today. And actually, every new product begins in someone's mind, and it was nearly 200 years ago that this woman, Ada Lovelace, considered the first programmer, together with Professor Charles Babbage from Cambridge, had a vision. She said, the analytical engine might act upon other things besides numbers, supposing, for instance, that the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree and complexity. This dream has now become a reality. Now, AI is not new, and algorithmic composition also is not new. This is something, for example, this piece, considered to be the first algorithmic composition created by AI in '57. That's called the Iliac Suite, and it was generating a score for string quartet. And then in the 80s and the 90s, we could hear something by Professor David Cope, who developed EMI, experiments in music intelligence, which, as you can hear, is much more developed. And it's been said that this is already a better composer than 99% of the population. But I think it was in the last decade that the leading companies have actually joined this revolution. IBM Watson Beat, Google Magenta, Sony Deep Bach, and the Flow Machine as various other startups. And in fact, I think it was the generative AI revolution in late November 22, that have actually sparked our imagination and enabled the massive shift that we see today. Because basically, there's something really exciting about generative AI. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to know how to play. You don't need to know how to program. You don't need to know how to write music, create photos. You just need to generate, sometimes just through speaking about it. And anyone can become an artist, and this is something dramatic. So I want to show you some examples. For example, AI created works of art that actually won first place in international competitions. For example, works of art are being sold for, this one, for example, for $500,000, and very recently it was sold for over $1 million. This is a portrait of Alan Turing created by this humanoid robot, Ada. Also, it created music, for example, in this case, by Sony, it's called Deep Bach, by the Flow Machine, that more than half of the people, including professional musicians, could not tell whether this was created by Bach, or by the machine. It also enables us, in a sense, the resurrection of the dead. This is a very exciting moment in time where, for example, the Beatles, the legendary band, has actually released recently a new song nearly 40 years after John Lennon has passed away, and this is using AI to actually isolate its voice in such a quality that enabled this new release. So this is one very touching moment. The other one is actually the ability to assist those in need. For example, in this case, by Randy Travis, the famous American singer who lost his voice nearly a decade ago. The AI enabled to release a new song based on his old songs. And this is quite touching, I think, as well. It's called Where It Came From.
She had eyes like diamonds, they caught the light. Oh, but they were dark and deeper than the night. But when she'd smile, out came the sun.
Okay, so these are some very touching and good examples. We could also see some of the problems faced by AI. For example, this song, supposedly created by two of the most successful artists, Drake and The Weeknd, was released 2 years ago, gained massive millions of streams, only to later be revealed that it was never recorded. There wasn't such a collaboration, and it was in fact released by Ghostwriter 977 that no one knows who he is. So that basically presents some of the problems that copyright law and we may face in the future. Now, what about, speaking about copyright law, what about your ability to just hum or whistle a tune and the AI would complement and complete the song? For example, in this case, by Suno, one of the leading platforms, we can hear this tune, which is then extended into a song. What is it? Who created this? Is it a woman? Is it a computer? Is it a joint authorship? So this is just one example. Now, if you think that this relates only to pop music, well, think again. Try to think, when we normally think about classical music, you know, the violin, we normally tend to think about people like Isaac Perlman, like Yehudi Menuhin. But listen to this piece, which was created recently by a violinist named Daniel Kurganov. And all you are hearing was created by AI. So I think that this does raise some questions. I mean, is this the end of classical music as we know it, or does it mark a new beginning? So these are very important questions that I'd like to discuss. Now, the question is, can computers really be creative? And I'd like to show you, I'd like to present some two different opposing views. Music, for example, and I'm speaking about music, I'm coming from that industry, that's my passion, but obviously we're speaking about everything. It can be art, it could be any sort of art, literature, films, photography, etc. So music is intended to produce a deep emotional reaction, and the question is, can such emotional and ethereal phenomenon be translated and analyzed in computational code? And I'd like to actually present two different views. For example, Douglas Hofstadter, the famous scientist, initially thought that it would have to understand the joy and loneliness of a chilly night's wind, the longing for a cherished hand, the inaccessibility of a distant town, the heartbreak and regeneration after a human death. Therein and therein only lie the sources of meaning in music. So he thought initially as one of the leading scientists, that there is something human that cannot be replicated. But after he heard David Cope's work, playing in the style of Chopin, he was amazed, he was shocked. And he said, it was new, it was unmistakably Chopin-like in spirit, and it was not emotionally empty. I was truly shaken. How could emotional music be coming out of a program that had never heard a note, never lived a moment of life, never had any emotions whatsoever? So that's one view. The other view, basically, is, for example, we all saw this Ghibli studio effect that was over the internet, and basically Miyazaki, the legendary animator, Japanese animator, he defined it a few years ago as an insult to life itself, because technologies that copy human creativity, in a sense, diminish the human creative process, so that the content produced basically makes the human contribution somewhat invisible. The other one, Nick Cave, basically, received from a fan song created by AI. And he said, basically, that songs arise out of suffering. As I know, algorithms don't feel, data doesn't suffer. ChatGPT has no inner being, it has been nowhere, it's endured nothing. ChatGPT's melancholy role is that it's destined to imitate and can never have any authentic role in authentic human experience, basically. So this song, he said, is a grotesque mockery of what it is to be human, and well, I don't much like it. What do you think? How many people think that the first one, that Douglas Hofstadter is right? How many of you? How many people think that Nick Cave and Ghibli, Miyazaki? Okay. So I think that we're getting into an era, a new era of creativity that is unfolding, basically. It's a revolutionary fusion between human capabilities and advanced technologies that is transforming the way that we think, that we create, and understand art as we previously known it until today. And it's very exciting. It's very exciting. In terms of law, basically, AI undermines the very basic premise of copyright law, which is based on the notion of the human author. So that's 300 years that the copyright law from 1710, the first copyright law, basically no one has ever could imagine these developments. And the human author, basically the compendium, for example, defines the term authorship. It says that it implies for a work to be copyrightable, it must owe its origin to a human being, basically. And that's the premise. Now, AI basically presents three main problems. The first one is training AI on copyrighted works, what's called the input, basically, because when we train the AI, we use copyrighted works, millions and now billions and even trillions of work to create the AI. Is that copyright infringement? Does that constitute copyright infringement? And there's a problem with human creativity and with artists who should be compensated for that. So that's one issue. The second one is a question of ownership, basically. Ownership. Let's say there is something created by the AI. Who owns it? There could be lots of possibilities. And the third one is a question of copyright infringement. Let's say that there is an infringement. Who are you going to sue? This is a machine. It's a robot. So with regards to the first issue, there have been quite a few cases recently, and actually last week, various publishers sued Anthropic, the company behind Claude, basically, which agreed to pay $1.5 billion to settle the copyright lawsuit. This is the largest publicly reported copyright in history, and that's quite a significant milestone. And in the case of Thomson Reuters versus Ross Intelligence, the court found that this was not fair use and constituted copyright infringement. And there's another case by various labels, leading major labels, against Suno and Udio, that's still in the early days. Now, with regards to the issue of ownership, who owns it? So there have been quite a few cases. It will take time. It will take time. It's a massive change. As I mentioned, 300 years which are being undermined currently by this development. But in several cases, for example, this case, Steven Thaler wanted to register this work which is called The Recent Entrance to Paradise. And the Copyright Office said basically that it cannot be registered because an author under copyright law is human, basically. The court says that in the absence of human involvement, copyright protection cannot be recognized, and added that human creation is a foundation of copyright. In another case, Zarya of the Dawn, created by Christina Kashtanova, the images were generated by Midjourney. And she wanted to write this, and the court and the Copyright Office said basically that the images which were created by an AI are not the product of a human creation and therefore are not entitled to copyright protection, because the process basically is unpredictable and not basically under the user control. So according to the Copyright Office, the prompt line is more similar to a suggestion. This is not an instruction. We don't know what would be the final outcome. If each one of us would actually give the same prompt, we very likely will get different outcomes. So, on the other hand, in China, in the case of Li versus Liu, there was a lawsuit against a blogger who actually used an image created by AI, and the court said that basically Mr. Li invested certain creative efforts in the image in terms of the character design, determining the order and the parameters related to the image, and therefore it is protected. So we can see that there are various points of view in the world and in general. About the question of the output, about the ownership. Now, who owns basically this? There could be at least 6 options. It could be the programmer, it can be the user, it can be the machine, it can be joint authorship, it can be work made for hire, and perhaps we don't need any copyright, and this should be in the public domain. We're speaking copyright, it's for 70 years after the death of the author. There's no life and there's no author. So that's a very, very complicated issue. Each one of these arguments, each one of these solutions have very strong arguments for and against, and it's a very complicated issue. Now, this basically development creates a democratization of creativity. Anyone can become an artist. This is a very fascinating and exciting moment in time. However, check this prediction that by 2026, 90% of the media online will be AI generated. What does it mean? What does it mean for creativity, for humanity? Are we going into a post-human creativity? I mean, basically, will this lead to a situation where people will be considered the author, the creator, just based on their creative ideas, the prompt? When I used to play music in school, doing my exams, I used to practice sometimes 6, 7, even 10 hours a day. Now you don't need to know how to play a single note. You can just generate music and create something beautiful. But is this the same as copyright law intended to protect? So, do we not need to know and have the professional artistic ability to create the work? This does raise important question. What is the role of the composer, of the artist in the era of algorithmic composition? Are we in a post-human era? Does AI have a cultural contribution? How does the automation of the creative process changes the incentives that IP law purport to provide? And what is the role of copyright law in promoting human creativity? I think that human creativity is very, very important, and it's very important for us to actually maintain that and keep that. One of the reasons, basically, and Professor Dan Bork written a very interesting article called Cheap Creativity and What It Will Do. And what he's saying, basically, he's actually saying that when tens of millions of new works are being created by the machine, the relevant question is not who created them, but what the cultural value is. AI provides a synthetic substitute for human creativity. Today, for example, nearly 34 million AI-generated photos are created every day. This is massive. We cannot compete. But the question is what that is going to do to our human creativity, and that's very important. And I think that there have been various explanations why this is so important. So first of all, human creativity stems from emotions, from feelings, from experiences and personal vision, and artists and writers and musicians have all used their creativity to actually express what is happening in society and within them. Secondly, creativity is not only about art, this is also about out-of-the-box thinking and about the ability to see things from different perspectives and connect disparate ideas in new ways. And this is a human skill which cannot be fully replicated by the machine so far. Also, I think that creativity contributes to shaping human culture and identity. And artistic works and music and literature, basically, and other creative expression are central to the cultural heritage of each country and society, and it does reflect the values, the beliefs, and aspirations. Also, very important, basically, is that while artificial intelligence can generate content and mimic creativity, it lacks the ability to actually understand and consider ethical implications, basically. And human creativity involves a process, basically, that of moral and responsible thinking, which is an integral part of the creative process. And lastly, the issue of human creation, which bears the personal stamp of the creator, so the authenticity of human creation is the result of the unique experience, the talent, and the effort of the creator. So these are very important, I think, issues to consider when we think about how we would like AI to develop in the future. And I think that AI should enhance creativity, not replace it. AI should support human creativity, not overshadow it. And perhaps we got it all wrong, as Joanna Makiszewska said. She said, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so I can do my art and writing, and not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes, basically. So to sum up, I think that what she meant, she doesn't speak about laundry. She speaks about AI taking from us all the tedious tasks that we don't like to do, but we should keep and do the things that they provide us with lots of pleasure and joy and meaning. So to sum up, I think it's a fascinating era. It's a very fascinating moment in time. As I mentioned, we have a humanoid robot speaks in the next room. And this is a very rare moment in time. It's a new industrial revolution. Some people said this is the biggest change in the 500 years in the history of the world. It doesn't really matter. It's a massive, dramatic change that transformed the world. Sundar Pichai from Google said this is the bigger revolution than the internet, the fire, and electricity combined. So AI is transforming the creative industries. AI is generating dramatic change also in the legal world. And there's augmentation of capabilities, but it's very important, I think, to maintain and preserve human involvement in the process and make sure that we ensure responsible AI. So what I would say, basically, is enjoy and join the revolution, but keep your humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brook, for this captivating presentation full of emotions, and really you got our brains going there, I think. We have a few questions coming through a slider. First one, if I sing terribly, can AI produce a hit song using my own voice?
Yes, it does. It actually, this is not something new. It was called the share effect, and many years ago that you can actually auto-tune and change the voice and the pitch of the voice to make it sound much better. So this is possible even before the AI and much more after the AI.
So great news for my husband. Thank you very much. And the second question, we still need to give impulse to AI to create something, so in the end it isn't the human behind it. You touched upon it, but please do share your comments.
Yeah. Definitely there should be a human behind it, and that's what I was referring to. I think it's going to be a very interesting era of joining, of using the computer and the AI not just as a tool, but more as a partner, as a colleague. And this is something very, very interesting and fascinating, because there's something here which is different than everything that was before. So it's fascinating, and I think that the future is actually, as I mentioned, the augmentation of our capabilities through AI and creating new forms of creativity, which obviously the law and other philosophical, legal, ethical questions would have to be asked, but it's going to open lots of horizons, new horizons.
Thank you very much. That
Thank
was
you.
Dr. Eyal Brook. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.